Hello. So this is going to be take two of this video. There was an earlier live, but I deleted it because I realized there was something that I'd forgotten. But before I get into that, I've got to tell you the reason why I started this video. Partially, it was just so that I could just talk off the top of my dome, but also it was to talk about a conversation. Well, it was a subject in relation to a conversation I'd had with the TI earlier, and that's the subject of perps and TIs and what gang stalking means for both. So the point that I came to with regards to the conversation that I had with this other TI was this: perps are not next. I've said in earlier videos that the perps are next, and once they come after TIs, it's going to be the perps that are next. And I've always said that because I wanted to believe it. And I wanted to believe it because I wanted revenge on the perpetrators. I wanted them to suffer. I wanted them to understand what it was like to be tortured the same way they've tortured us. But this is the thing though. The perps are not next. The perps are being killed off right along with us. There are at least two people that I know of that were perps of mine that have been murdered by the same people that promised to protect them if they came after me. Promised to protect their children if they came after me. In some cases, those same children went on to be perps, which means that that promise that was made to one of the perps that their own bosses murdered were broken, as usual, like clockwork. So, right along with targeted individuals, perps are also being murdered. Left and right, it's happening everywhere. In fact, because there are more perps and TIs, it's more likely that perps are being killed than we are. That's the truth. Gang stalking, I've said it for years, but gang stalking is literally like the Stanford experiment. You've got two groups of people in the same experiment with weapons, with frequency manipulation of one's brain waves, weapons, frequency manipulation, and long range acoustic devices. We're all being subject to the same shit. The only difference is that one has a bunch of like cheap coupons and contraband, customs and excise shit, and one group of us doesn't have that. That's the only difference. That is literally the only difference. So that's the first thing. The first thing is that the perps are being exterminated right alongside the TIs. And in the case of the perps, it's foolproof because unlike the TIs, the perps have got a long fucking rap sheet as a result of everything that they've done to TIs. Even if they're not going to be not going to be charged for their crimes are still being recorded just in case. Which makes it even more likely that even if perps wanted to do something, that they couldn't do anything, even if they wanted to. And as long as they're not admitting to what they've done, they're ensuring that their descendants will suffer for everything that for everything that they've done now. They're ensuring that the descendants will suffer for it. Because the more evil that you do over time is the more likely that further on down the line that your descendants will suffer for what you've done. And it's not an easy reality to deal with, but it is reality, unfortunately. Time doesn't have an expiration date on punishment, unfortunately. I found that out with the treatment that I've meted out to people over the years, and truth be told, with a lot of people's involvement in my torture and in my trafficking, the people involved in my torture and trafficking are about to find that out as well. Karma doesn't have a time limit. It really doesn't. But when you nip it in the bud sooner rather than later, you leave a clean slate, not only for yourself, but for future generations after you. It's important. But the perps are not going to admit to anything. Not only because, it's not emotionally going to hit them until it's far too late. But even if it did, who would they go to? Who would believe them? And that leads me to the second portion of this video. Why these particular perps would not be believed. Now, in my case, most of my perps have been black, brown, from immigrant backgrounds, and especially mentally ill. Okay. I've been threatened with injections that I had, I've been targeted for decades. I ain't been injected yet. Whereas there are several perps who have been enlisted to gang stalk me, enlisted to engage in street theater against me, enlisted to engage in smear campaigns and threats and all the rest of it. They've been injected multiple times with nerve-killing drugs. With nerve-killing drugs that further reinforces the brain damage that remote electronic torture has done. So if, somebody like me has damage done to their brain and it results in some kind of, neurological disorder or antisocial personality disorder, it's going to be 10 times worse than a perp because of the torture, plus the amount of brainwashing they're subjected to as a result of being passed through the psychiatric industrial complex or the prison industrial complex or the military industrial complex. So, perps have come from, most of the perps that have dealt with me have come from backgrounds, black and brown, immigrant, addict, mentally ill, which makes them really effective weapons. They're effective disposable weapons. The most effective disposable weapons come from marginalized backgrounds, because it's people from those particular backgrounds that are the most desperate to get out of the oppression that they have been subjected to. So they tend to be the most effective when it comes to gang stalking. They are the most effective people to hire. A lot of people are saying, oh, I've been mostly gang stalked by black people. Well, I'm sorry, but if you've been mostly gang stalked by black people, it also means that most of the targets are going to be black. It's just that they don't know it and you don't know it. But there is an efficiency to the racial makeup of targeted individuals. There is a point to it, because out of everybody in the world, black people are not given the benefit of the doubt, brown people are not given the benefit of the doubt, poor people are not given the benefit of the doubt, mentally ill people are especially not given the benefit of the doubt, and physically disabled people are not given the benefit of the doubt. Queer people are not given the benefit of the doubt. Trans people are not given the benefit of the doubt. Any marginalized group you can think of are not given the benefit of the doubt nearly as much as cis-het white males. And that might not amount to very much when you're poor. It doesn't amount to very much when you're poor. But when it comes to gang stalking, when it comes to you being rich, there are two places where all of this adds up, with gang stalking and with rich people. And in gang stalking, the benefit of the doubt matters, because if a black person or an immigrant or a brown person chooses to give up the gang stalking and join the right side of history, who is going to believe them, including their own people? If an addict chooses to abscond from gang stalking and tries to appeal to people in similar situations to them to not go for this shit because it will end up doing more harm than good, who's going to believe them? Who's going to listen? People are more likely to follow an aspirational trail. It's like I said before, Conservatives have a chip on their shoulder about respectability politics. So they're more likely to openly follow those they believe are the strongest. That means cishet white males. Whereas people on the so-called left, who are really more center-right, they're going to go down the road of respectability politics because they've got a chip on their shoulder about being laughed at. So they're going to go down the respectability politics. But whether you go down the respectability route or the cartoon villain route, it amounts to being in the same place or walking towards the same journey. You're still doing the same shit. You're still leaning on your biggest enemies in order to take on your smaller ones. And what that results in is black TIs and brown TIs and marginalized TIs, especially black female TIs or queer TIs, being incredibly overlooked. And God help you if you're not Christian in the targeted community. You're going to be overlooked. And because you're going to be overlooked, it allows perps who are similar to us to do their jobs more effectively against us, to utilize their emotional vulnerability to try to shut us down, to try to intimidate us into silence, to try to drive us crazy enough to get us locked up. Perps from marginalized communities become pawns in a game. And if they ever decide to quit, not only will people not give them as much of the benefit of the doubt as cis white male perps, not only will they not be given the benefit of the doubt like that, but because of their long ass rap sheet, and because people are witnesses to the smear campaigns that they have engaged in against TIs that are similar to them, then not only are they not going to be believed, they're not going to be liked. Now, when we get into white TIs and white perps, it's a little bit different because then there's the classism factor to think about. The thing about white folk is that two things have to be considered here. One is that racism is a bonding exercise. And two is that white people are very easily discouraged 9 times out of 10, right? So you get those two things together, which makes it easier for white people to engage in gang stalking, especially against someone who's black and brown, if they're straight, same thing against somebody who's queer, right? All you have to do is tell a straight person that a queer person is a deviant who hurts kids, and it immediately gives their bigotry legitimacy, right? So this is the thing about perps of privileged backgrounds. They've got to be super privileged to be given the benefit of the doubt here. Super privileged. And that goes for both perps and targeted individuals. What that results in is that we live in a society that is more likely going to be taking the side of the perps than the TIs. So if a white perp who is wealthy, they've got to be wealthy, they've got to be respectable. And if they're male, so much the better. If they're stoic, so much the better. They're going to be given the benefit of the doubt. They're going to be given the benefit of the doubt over a white woman, over a white woman with children, over a white single woman, over a white single mother especially, over a white woman addict, over a white queer woman, over a white disabled woman. If you are white, but if you belong to any other marginalized group, that benefit of the doubt diminishes. So when you decide to tell your story, the only purpose that it would serve is that it would reinforce the genocide that is already happening. That is the only difference that it would make if you decided to speak up. Because remember, in my case, I'm black myself. Nobody in this country gives a shit about black people like that. I'm black myself, right? And I come from immigrant grandparents, not parents. My parents are not immigrants, but my grandparents even my grandparents are not really immigrants because they came from Jamaica when it was a Commonwealth. But, you know, like if a white person never came out, the only people that it would suit, ironically, are the same people that are experimenting on us. Because remember, they're all, and you know, the same people benefiting from defense systems and big pharma. They're the ones preaching to the rest of society about anti-immigration. They're the ones preaching to the rest of society about how addicts are a waste of space, about how poor people, benefit claimants, are a waste of space. Most of the people that are perps, I mean, since I've come here, most of my perps have been white since I've come here, and most of them have been white and on benefits. Even those who are working, even perps who are working, were on benefits, right? So, you know, even when privileged white perps or privileged white TRs are given the benefit of the doubt, they are still juxtaposed against immigrants, against poorer people, against people on benefits, against people with mental health problems, against people who are queer or trans, against any marginalized group. White TIs and white perps will be juxtaposed against that. So even when they do speak out, it will still be in defense of the same genocide that gangstalking was engineering to begin with. Do you understand what I'm saying? And the way the world works is more respect will be given to those who killed everybody than towards those who tried to stop the killing. Because if there's one thing that we know about the world is that people are more likely to pay respect to people who either indulge or destroy them. And that's what you do when you're a gang stalker. That's what you do when you engineer gang stalking. You're destroying people, you're killing people. More respect is more likely to be given to those who kill than to people like myself who are TIs who offend. So if it doesn't matter what the situation is, you could be a TI, you could be a perp, unless you're a wealthy, straight, white male, the likelihood is that you will not be given the benefit of the doubt as much as somebody else in the same situation. The whole point of gang stalking in the first place was to lead us here anyway. So every single person who was a perp wrote their own ticket. Even those who were straight white males, you wouldn't believe the type of shit that happens to them before they're blackmailed into this shit. There was one straight white male perp that I heard of that had multiple strokes as a result of firing the electronic weapons at people. So even the people that they were firing at, they weren't being as irradiated as much as the person using the fucking weapons. Multiple strokes due to the non-ionized radiation, and yet that was a straight white male. But of course, they were an immigrant. From what I heard, an arms dealer. Okay, they were an immigrant, but that was still a white male. If a white male can go through shit like that, imagine what they are prepared to let happen to poorer perps, to child perps, to female perps, to black and brown perps. Like they are not saving your life here. You were led into a trap, into a slaughterhouse of your own making, just so that you could laugh at somebody else. It couldn't be me, you know. Couldn't be me. Not by a long chalk. You think I'm about to join some fucking genocidal effort just so that I can laugh at someone else? Ain't no way. Perps are already out here dying. They're already out here being genocided right alongside TIs. They're already being genocided right alongside us. You know what I mean? You people don't know. You just don't know the amount of deep shit that you're actually in. This white man, this white straight man, potentially an arms dealer because Customs and Excise gave him arms to play with. They dangled his ass over a cliff and said, if you don't work for us, we're going to drop you. And he was a straight white male. Imagine what they could do to you if you came from a marginalized background and you started telling the truth. And because of the respectability politics on the so-called left and the cartoon villainous shit on the right, you're not going to be given the benefit of that doubt for anybody to even believe you or do anything about it. The world has already demonstrated that you are fucked. And this is the mad thing about it, right? I knew all of this when I first started being aware of gangstalking. I knew how fucked the perps were. Cognitively, I knew, but emotionally, because I was so bothered by what they were saying about me, because I was so bothered about what the fuck they were saying and doing, it didn't emotionally hit me how fucked the perps actually were. It didn't emotionally hit me like that. But now it's emotionally hitting me. After almost 2 decades, like it's finally starting to hit me how fucked the perps actually are. Because they're not going to get any help on our side. Because even if we wanted to help them, again, there aren't as many TI as there are perps. And we've been physically tortured. We've been financially abused. We've been emotionally abused. So even if we wanted to help these people, which many of us don't, the perps are fucked. They've got nowhere to go. We're too weak to support them. And then the people who hired them, they're already killing them. They're already killing them. The only difference between this situation where they're being killed and them being TIs is that they have less privileges, but they get less privileges, but they get less torture as well. You think they give a shit though? You think they give a shit? No. So like if it's taken me like almost 2 decades for me to emotionally reconcile with the fact that the perps are being genocided right alongside TIs, how long do you think it's going to take for perps to get the picture? How long do you think it's going to be before the perps get the picture? It took me two decades, and I'm on the right side of history. It took me 2 decades for it to emotionally sink in. Wow, the perps are really being murdered alongside us, and they do not care. And again, I know of at least one person that was gang stalking me that's been murdered, and it was moved on to their family members. I know of at least one person that's happened to. So they like basically lied like a rug and said, oh no, no, nothing will happen to your family if you do this for us. Next thing you know, the perp's dead, and their relatives they've moved on to their relatives. And another thing that has to be reconciled with is that because of the way this world works systemically, not only are perps being genocided, but their resources are being annexed too. Their resources are being annexed too, especially if they are rich people who have sacrificed family members to gang stalking. Their resources are being annexed by the syndicates that they agree to gang stalk for. So they're being killed and having their wealth and their resources taken from them right under their noses, just for them to have the ability to laugh at somebody else's pain. Sounds like a pretty fucking ridiculous arrangement to me. Couldn't be me. And again, Who's going to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially if you're a perp from a marginalized background? If you're a perp and you're an addict, or you're a perp and you have mental health issues, who the fuck is going to take you on? You are alone and guaranteed to be murdered because your bosses lie like they breathe. And I've made like racial distinctions and, because of the nuance of gang stalking and what it's used for. I've talked about race, but the truth of the matter is that if you're a perp and you're a TI, the benefit of the doubt might not amount to much. We had Dr. Robert Duncan, another white man who was willing to speak out against gang stalking. He's dead. He was killed by the same weapons that he spoke out against. So I can't even say for definite that all white perps will be spared and all white TI, like, because it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. When you become a perp, you sign your own death warrant. There are subtle differences in race and gender and sexuality, but the truth of the matter is that if you are a perp, you're dead already. You're dead already. And again, it's only now just hitting me emotionally, like the weight of that. Because you want to know something really tragic about this whole situation. The perps are not going to care that they've backed themselves into a corner. They're not going to care about the fact that they are essentially more loyal to the people killing them than they are to themselves. Unfortunately, if they do care, they feel like they won't be able to do anything about it. And if they don't care, then they don't care, which means we have to go through more torture at their hands, even though they know what the situation is, because they're too cowardly to go after the people that are killing them. Even in all their numbers, they're too cowardly to go after the people killing them, so they'd rather go after the people trying to save them. Pathetic. That's how averse human beings are to being offended. That's how averse human beings are to being annoyed. They will kill somebody for annoying them gleefully. But let them go after somebody that's actually trying to kill them. Let them get the same energy. They won't. So even when the perps know what the situation is, they ain't about to do shit. They're not about to do a fucking thing to help themselves, to help TIs. They're completely, just like TIs, we're completely on our own in trying to save everyone. They're completely by themselves going to the fucking slaughterhouse. Ain't no fucking compassion coming. They're already being killed and they don't care, or they choose not to care. So unfortunately, it does mean that we have to suffer because of their fucking hang-ups. We do have to suffer because of their wrongful choices. We do have to suffer because they refuse to face reality. We do have to suffer because they would rather have somebody to laugh at than save their own lives. It is what it is. Oh, Lord. If I'm not making complete sentences today, just know that there have been several weapons being fired at my head for the last few weeks. So if my sentences aren't stringing together properly, then you'll know why. Yeah. But yeah. And again, don't let the far right fool you either. They've been canvassing to TIs with the electrosensitivity stuff. But the far right and the right people on the right are the same ones that have stocks in the same defense systems companies. Sorry, not defense systems companies. They have stock in the same pharmaceutical companies and defense systems that have made bank from experimenting on the rest of us, and on TIs and perps especially. So don't let them fool you either. Like I said, Gangstalking has a point. Apparently, the most concentrated Gangstalking, the most concentrated number of Gangstalking victims out there is in Poland. And Poland is pretty fucking far right as far as politics go. Like, abortion over there is over 99% illegal, and they've got the highest concentration of TIs over there. Connect the dots, like I said before. Far right politicians have been canvassing to us because they know that the left isn't about to listen. What the far right have done, which is quite ingenious, is they've claimed to be on our side whilst making Havana syndrome sound as crazy as possible, so that the left are completely unawares of how many of them are actually being targeted right under their noses, so that they're completely blind to their own targeting. It worked a treat. And in the meantime, while they're canvassing to us, they're taking monies in stocks and shares from the same people that have been experimenting on us, from the same creative intelligence services like Black Cube that have been involved in gangstalking. Having investments with such people, having relationships with such people. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Also that, like, all of this is so that we can laugh at each other. And my God. Oh my God. Fuck me. So with the left hand, they were making us look as crazy as possible by making the use of electronic weapons sound like fairy tales. And with the right, they're claiming to be on our side. And they did a bang up job, because they convinced everybody that marginalized people were not a part of that conversation, when most TIs are most likely to come from marginalized backgrounds. Then I did a bang up job. So again, if black perps were to ever come out, brown perps were to ever come out, who'd believe them? Who'd side with them? Shit. This is a mess. This is a mess. This is a mess, bro. Human beings really are garbage. And this is the thing that really kills me. Everything that was done to me, said to me, was 1,000 times stupider than anything that I could have said or done. And yet, because these people not only refuse to feel stupid, but have multiple people sucking their dick, it's led to the destruction of the world, partially. A lot of people have called me crazy. A lot of people called me mad, and I said I'd rather be mad than stupid. And it was true. But again, it didn't emotionally hit me until everything went down. Now I understand what came out of my fucking mouth. Now it really hit me. All of that, everything that we're going through right now, all the death, all the destruction, because so many people couldn't bear being laughed at. Imagine. All because we don't want any downers. We want to have fun. You wanted to have fun, right? This is the result of it. My God. my God. People going down on the most guilty people on the planet, people sucking their dick all the way to the end of humanity, or the end of humanity as we know it. Fuck all that, mate. Yeah. Again, didn't emotionally hit me until now. But the perps are absolutely fucked. Thoroughly fucked. And people on both sides of the political spectrum are fucked too. And especially those on the conservative side that are poor. They're usually those who are poor, those who are queer, you name it, they're usually the first to come under the chopping block. And TRs are going to be among that number. Wait. But the perps? Fucked. Breathtakingly so. Watch this space. Anyway, I gotta go. Peace and blessings. I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. If you've made it to the end of this video, let me know how you're doing. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Bye-bye.